Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, entitled The Status Quo. Chapter 17, The Victory of Hiranyaksha over all the directions of the universe. Text number 6. Uddhasattadidam bodha Ghataya nashtabhagane Vyomni pravishta tamasa Nasmavyadrishyate padam. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The luminaries in the heavens were screened by masses of clouds in which lightning sometimes flashed as though laughing. Darkness reigned everywhere and nothing could be seen. Next few verses I'll read by myself. Chukrosha vimana vardhir udurmi chubitodaraha sodapanascha saritas chukshubhu shushkapankajaha. Translation. The ocean with its high waves wailed aloud as if stricken with sorrow, and there was a commotion among the creatures inhabiting the ocean. The rivers and lakes were also agitated, and lotuses withered. Muhu paridhayo bhuvan sarahvo shashisuryayo nirghata ratha nirhrada vivarebhya prajagnire. Translation. Misty halos appeared around the sun and the moon during solar and lunar eclipses again and again. Claps of thunder were heard even without clouds. Sounds like those of rattling chariots emerged from the mountain caves. Antargrameshu mukhato vamantyo vaknimulbanam srugaloluka Tankarai pranedur ashivam shivaha. Translation. In the interior of the villages, she-jackals yelled portentously, vomiting strong fire from their mouths, and jackals and owls also joined them with their cries. Sangeetavad rodanavad unnamaya shirodharam Vyamunchan vividha vacho grama simhastatastataha. Translation. Raising their necks, dogs cried here and there, now in the manner of singing and now of wailing. Karascha karkashai kshattaha kurair gnanto dharatalam kharkara rabhasamatta paryad Dhavan Varuthashaha. Translation. O Vidura, the asses ran hither and thither in herds, striking the earth with their hard hooves and wildly braying. Purport. Asses also feel very respectable as a race, and when they run in flocks hither and thither in so-called jollity, it is understood to be a bad sign for human society. Text 12. Rudanto Rasabhatrasta Nidad Udapatan Khagaha Ghosheranye cha Pashavaha Shakran Mutram Akurvata. Translation. Frightened by the braying of the asses, birds flew shrieking from their nests, while cattle in the cowsheds as well as in the woods passed dung and urine. Text 13. Gavotrasan asrigdohas toyada puyavarshinaha vyarudan devalingani drumapetur vinanilam. Translation. Cows terrified yielded blood in place of milk. Clouds rained pus. The images of the gods in the temples shed tears. and trees fell down without a blast of wind. Text 14. Grahan punyatamananye bhaganamschapi deepitaha aticherur vakragatya yuyudhuscha parasparam. Translation. Ominous planets such as Mars and Saturn shone brighter and surpassed the auspicious ones such as Mercury, Jupiter and Venus, as well as a number of lunar mansions. Taking seemingly retrograde courses, the planets came in conflict with one another. Purport. The entire universe is moving under the three modes of material nature. Those living entities who are in goodness are called the pious species, pious lands, pious trees, etc. It is similar with the planets also. Many planets are considered pious and others are considered impious. Saturn and Mars are considered impious. When the pious planets shine very brightly, it is an auspicious sign. But when inauspicious planets shine very brightly, this is not a very good sign. Text 15. Drishtvanyaamscha mahotpatan atat tattvavida prajaha brahmaputran rate bhita menire vishwasamplavam. Translation. Marking these and many other omens of evil times, everyone but the four sage sons of Brahma, who were aware of the fall of Jaya and Vijaya and of their birth as Diti's sons, were seized with fear. They did not know the secrets of these portents and thought that the dissolution of the universe was at hand. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. According to Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter, the laws of nature are so stringent that it is impossible for the living entity to surpass their enforcement. It is also explained that only those who are fully surrendered to Krishna in Krishna consciousness can be saved. We can learn from the description of the Srimad Bhagavatam that it is because of the birth of two great demons that there were so many natural disturbances. It is to be indirectly understood, as previously described, that when there are constant disturbances on the earth, that is an omen that some demoniac people have been born or that the demoniac population has increased. In former days, there were only two demons, those born of Diti. Yet, there were so many disturbances. At the present day, especially in this age of Kali, these disturbances are always visible, which indicates that the demoniac population has certainly increased. To check the increase of demoniac population, the Vedic civilization enacted so many rules and regulations of social life, the most important of which is the Garbhadhana process for begetting good children. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna informed Krishna that if there is unwanted population, Varna Sankara, the entire world will appear to be hell. People are very anxious for peace in the world, but there are so many unwanted children born without the benefit of the Garbhadhana Samskar ceremony, just like the demons born from Diti. Diti was so lusty that she forced her husband to copulate at a time which was inauspicious, and therefore the demons were born to create disturbances. In having sex life to beget children, one should observe the process of begetting nice children. If each and every householder in every family observes the Vedic system, then there are nice children, not demons, and automatically there is peace in the world. If we do not follow regulations in life for social tranquility, we cannot expect peace. Rather, we will have to undergo the stringent reactions of natural laws. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports. These descriptions are very scaring for sensible, sane people. You can imagine the reaction of the modern day people when they hear such descriptions. First of all, they would not give very serious attention to such descriptions because they have been brainwashed to think Puranas are mythology. So who will pay serious attention to such descriptions? And even if somebody were to read it, and consider the descriptions with any degree of seriousness, then you would say these are all simply some poet's imagination. Because very nice poetry. This is very beautiful poetry. I'm not good at reading Sanskrit poem. But if somebody could recite nicely or sing it, what is composed according to rules of meter can be recited with all the alliteration and all the ornaments of poetry, alankar, or it can be sung also according to a certain raga. So at best people may give credit that yes, it is very nice poetry, at the most. And there are so-called rationalists, atheists, agnostics, demons, who will just dismiss this whole thing as a figment of imagination of some poet. But for us, this is reality being described by Vyasadeva, as it was narrated by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj, or it was narrated by Maitreya to Vidura, and we take it very seriously, such descriptions. Such great personalities as Maitreya Rishi, Shukadeva Goswami, Vyasadeva, they have no business describing some fiction. They are not interested in fiction. They are describing something which is real. And we have to take serious note, if at all we are interested in knowing the truth, knowing the reality. Some of these descriptions are not necessarily within our experience. Clouds raining pus. When somebody hears this, say, this is some mythology. Just because it's not within our experience. We can similarly point out that tsunami was not within our experience. The ocean flooding the cities on the bank of the ocean, or the towns, or the places. But it happened. And then now scientists are scratching their head. What is this phenomenon called tsunami? So natural calamities are a reality. And if somebody cares to study a science behind this natural calamities occurring, what is the science behind these natural calamities occurring at different times? The science of the laws of nature. And there are so many other allied sciences. There is a science which describes the different symptoms seen in nature when there will be some natural calamity. They can predict a natural calamity by observing certain symptoms in nature. Unfortunately, modern man is far removed from nature. When we moved into this property in 1988, that time there were not many vehicles passing on this main road near our temple. There are not many apartments nearby. In fact, no apartments. There were just some houses. So if at middle of the night, if a dog starts barking, or as it's described here, starts wailing, we could hear very clearly. But of late, too much of activity, ugra karma, too many apartments under construction, a whole metro rail project is underway, so much of construction activity that the wailing of the dogs is completely drowned by the sound of all these construction equipment. Sometimes the ambulance, the siren of the ambulance is louder than the machine voice. So you can hear that. Middle of the night, somebody rushing to hospital in an ambulance for an emergency. But otherwise you don't hear natural sounds at all. There used to be so many birds surrounding this property. So many trees. Trees have been cut down. So birds have to go and find some other place for their residence, for building their nest. And if few birds are around, their sounds are not heard at all. Except when the equipment sometimes is silent early morning. Otherwise you don't hear sounds of birds. You don't hear dogs barking. Asses have been done away with, so you don't hear them braying. So, we are far removed from nature. So, where is the question of understanding how nature has got its own way of showing up some symptoms when there is a natural calamity occurring? Instead, we have got so many electronic devices to forecast tsunami. And in spite of that, tsunami is not going to stop if sinful activities are increasing. So for us, there is a very serious message here. That even in the former times, when two demons were taking birth, so many natural calamities foretold their appearance, their birth. And these are all real. These descriptions here, these are all real descriptions. You see? And we have to take note of these descriptions. So Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport that the entire universe is moving under the three modes of material nature. This is one thing which is very difficult again for people to understand, what is called as the modes of material nature. Material nature itself is such a big puzzle for even the big philosophers. Other than those who study the Vedic literature scientifically under proper authority, nobody else can understand the working of nature. And if you really study from the scriptures the ways of working of this material nature, you'll find it is very difficult to understand. Which scientist can explain that a very tiny seed, based on the particular seed, will take whatever it requires from the earth, in addition to water and sunshine, and grow up into a huge tree. Totally different from some other seed, which also derives the same nutrients, the same water, the same sunshine, and grows up into a totally different tree. Poets have expressed this: if you sow a neem seed, you can't expect mango fruit. So which scientist can explain this? What's going on? They don't know how nature is working. They have some theories which at best can partially explain something. But it's not really explaining the truth, the reality, the ultimate reality. An intelligent person is not just interested in partial truth, in relative truth. A real intelligent person is interested in ultimate truth. What is the ultimate cause of all causes? Now this inquiry nobody is doing. They are seeing some intermediate causes and coming to some conclusions, erroneous conclusions. So, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the presentation is particularly of God, and Prabhupada very nicely explains not just God as a controller, because the atheists have their own understanding of control or controllers. Foolishly they believe that man is the controller of nature. Totally foolish. In any case, Bhagavatam is not just presenting another controller who is a competitor to man, but Bhagavatam is presenting God as the ultimate cause of all causes. That is very, very important to note. Behind these laws of nature, behind the working of nature, there is the ultimate controller, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Mayadhyakshena prakritihi suyate sacharacharam. The statement is very important in the Bhagavad Gita. And it is substantiated in all the other scriptures which describe in detail how does Krishna control this material nature. How does Krishna control? In detail you can find the description in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, if we study carefully with a sober mind, that's why Sattva Guna is required. Kali Yuga is characteristically, people are lacking Sattva Guna. Kalim Sattva Haram Pumsam. All the good qualities are stolen away by the influence of this Kali Yuga. So people lack good qualities, they don't have patience, they don't have Sattva Guna. So therefore, they are unable to actually understand the reality as described in the scriptures, especially in the scriptures. But if somebody is little sober, somebody is philosophically inclined, Bhagavatam describes such people as Kovida. Tasyaiva heto prayateta Kovido. Somebody who is philosophically inclined, somebody who is intelligent, somebody who is sober, such a person can get a clear understanding of the absolute truth, of the ultimate reality, of God, of the working of nature, from such descriptions. Because people are not moving from the gross to the subtle. They stuck up with this gross perception of reality. And they want to remain in that. Like so many stubborn scientists, they won't even consider What is subtle reality? Spiritual reality is even beyond subtle reality. So at least if they consider subtle reality, then they may make some progress beyond their limited understanding of working of nature. So the spiritual reality is even beyond subtle reality. So that's why it's very difficult for them to understand what is spirituality. Whereas if somebody seriously understands properly with a sober mind, gross, subtle and spiritual. The gross body we have clear experience. We also have experience of the subtle body, the workings of the subtle body. And beyond both of them is the spiritual reality, which cannot be perceived. Even if one comes to perceive subtle reality, you cannot perceive spiritual reality. On the strength of your ability to perceive subtle reality, you cannot perceive what is spirituality. You have to transcend the gross and subtle platform of material nature and come to the spiritual platform to begin to perceive what is spiritual reality. And it's a matter of self-experience. Now spiritual reality, the first experience of spiritual reality is our own self. And then the Supreme Self, God, Krishna. So even perceiving our own self, we are misled by the wrong perception of ourself as the gross body or the subtle mind or the intelligence or the ego. There are 4 layers of covering that we have to actually transcend. And spiritual practice aims at actually transcending these 4 layers which are covering. So our spiritual practice is not simply some mere ritual, as sometimes people wrongly think. Neither is it a mechanical process which is mindlessly performed. No. Whether it is chanting or worshipping or meditation, any of the authentic processes, spiritual processes, it is not some mechanical process. Even the Ashtanga yogis who in the beginning adopt the mechanical method of controlling the senses and the mind, they have to ultimately come to the spiritual process where they give up this mechanical method of meditation and come to the spiritual platform. So, this is a process, the spiritual process for coming to the spiritual platform to perceive spiritual reality is actually thoughtfully done by intelligent persons who have purified their existence, sattva samshuddhi, by the scientific method of cleansing the heart. So we have the most scientific, powerful, effective method of cleansing our existence, Cheto Darpanamarjanam, by chanting Hare Krishna, by the Bhakti Yoga process. And we can very easily come to the spiritual platform. In fact, the process of Bhakti Yoga promises that you can instantaneously come to the spiritual platform. This is what Bhagavatam promises. Sadyo avarudhyate atra kritibi. Immediately one is transferred to the spiritual platform. As soon as you come in touch with Krishna, either through Bhagavatam or through chanting of Hare Krishna, or through coming in touch with the deity, immediately you can come to the spiritual platform. then immediately you experience spiritual reality. You don't have to wait for millions of years of meditation or some spiritual practice. That's the power of Bhakti Yoga. But to practice Bhakti Yoga, you require to have real faith in this process. This faith is not blind belief, or it is not some kind of brainwashing. You see? It is not a belief system, as people sometimes think. It is discovering the truth by preparing oneself to actually discover the truth. It's very scientific. It is very much intelligible by any real intelligent person. So in our own practice, when we read such descriptions, we should have the faith. Then only we can actually understand what is being described. Then only we can actually begin to perceive, begin to actually see the world differently. You see, when we visit holy places of pilgrimage, now typically devotees are very, very eager to visit as many temples as possible. Now this kind of rush for seeing so many places, that doesn't give you a real spiritual experience, let me tell you this. You miss out on so many finer things which if you would really take note of, you would be spiritually enriched much more. The very spiritual vibration of the holy place itself you have to perceive. For that you have to prepare something inside, not external preparation. You see? You have to go with a certain mindset. You have to prepare your subtle body. You should sharpen your intelligence to notice the difference between the spiritual atmosphere in holy place and the materialistic atmosphere in a city where people are busy with materialistic activities. There is a solid difference between the atmosphere in the two places. Especially a place where devotees or pious people or spiritualists are busy chanting, hearing, worshipping with solid faith. With solid faith. Where the holy rivers are flowing continuously, purifying the atmosphere. For example, if you go to Banaras, Kashi, the river Ganga is flowing, continuously flowing. So that's making a difference in the atmosphere. Even though people may visit, sinful people may visit that place, the river is purifying and spiritualizing the atmosphere. The worship of Kashi Vishwanath has been going on for millions of years. That worship has got an effect on the atmosphere. The devotees who reside there and are seriously practicing spiritual life, they make a difference in the atmosphere. So you have to go and experience that. That is the meaning of the visit. Just like Vidura is visiting the holy places, Prabhupada describes, he performed what is called as a pilgrim's progress by visiting these places. Pilgrim means somebody who is serious about spiritual advancement. And to make progress means you actually make spiritual advancement by visiting these places. Means you notice some spiritual difference in these places. Whether it is the trees or the birds or the animals or the people or the buildings, you should notice the difference. Everything is different in a holy place. It's not simply merely some trees are there. Even in Bangalore, trees are also there in Kashi. No. The trees are different. Just like Prabhupada mentions here, the living entities who are in goodness are called pious species, pious lands, pious trees. There are pious trees and there are impious trees. There are pious birds and impious birds. It is similar with the planets also. So to notice these differences, to take note of these differences, you have to prepare yourself before you visit such places. You see? So spiritual life is not some mechanically doing some activity mindlessly. No. You have to be very thoughtful. You have to be introspective. You should develop this faith that is required. That's why when reading these descriptions also, you have to note the details. Why so many details are given? Every detail is very significant. Every word of the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said, is very important for us. We're not filling the pages to make 18,000 shlokas. No. Every word is important. And who's speaking? Shukadeva Goswami is speaking. He is speaking only the most important things which are required for Parikshit to hear. Because Parikshit has very less time. Parikshit had only 7 days. Only 7 days. So obviously, Shukadeva Goswami is speaking the most essential things which is required for Parikshit to hear. And Parikshit is only hearing, that's all, nothing else is doing. Apart from inquiring, he's inquiring and he's hearing, that's all he's doing. And he becomes perfect. He goes back to Godhead. So, these words are very, very significant. These descriptions are very important. And if you carefully study, you will see how there is a complete link between everything that is happening around us. It's not by chance that something is happening. Everything has got a proper cause. We may or may not know, we may or may not be able to identify. But it's a fact that everything is perfectly working according to definite cause. Cause and effect. And the scriptures perfectly explain this. And if we study, we can understand. We can see, we can perceive. We can become established in this reality. And then we can make solid progress in our own spiritual life. So, these descriptions are very important for us. They are reality, descriptions of reality. And they help us to actually develop the proper understanding based on which we develop the proper faith, based on which our spiritual practices become very much productive. We make real spiritual progress when we are hearing Bhagavatam, when we are chanting Hare Krishna, when we are doing whatever spiritual activities, practices, we actually make progress. And then we become properly fixed up. Bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. When our heart gets cleansed, we become properly fixed up. And then spiritual life becomes very, very attractive, very interesting, very much enthusiastically we can do the devotional service. So we have to take note of these descriptions very carefully and not just, casually just think that, some description is there about some demons taking birth, some inauspicious things happen. No. Every single detail is very important. So next time I will connect the detail with some of the descriptions in the Bhagavad Gita about Krishna's controlling nature. Okay, I'll stop it. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.